Thank you, Madam Chair, representatives, and all others. I apologize for not having a tie today, but in the anteroom, it was my tie I had yesterday was threatened to be taken from me, so. Okay, anyway. I don't know, some of you may not know, but there was a Representative Greg Saltz who was with me as a freshman, and he came when after we were sworn in, came and asked me to introduce this because he works for a company that's international, and they're starting a national policy to prevent employees from having firearms in their vehicles, even though the vehicle's locked and secured. So in other words, if somebody wants to go hunting after work and they have their shotgun in the back of the car and somebody finds out, that employee can lose their job just by virtue of the fact that they found out they've got a firearm in the vehicle. And so the basic conflict is, does a person have, because we have always dealt with somebody's own vehicle as being private property and your own property. That's why they can't search it without a warrant and everything else. And so being that your vehicle is private property, even though you're employed by somebody, you should not be denied your right to have a firearm in your vehicle for protecting yourself to and from work or to go hunting or for any other reason. And a lot of the, I presume it's a function of liability, a function of political correctness. More and more large companies are going towards these policies, and I think in New Hampshire our employees should be protected from having, prevented from being able to defend themselves when they're going to and from work, regardless of whether they're employed. So there's the rub, that's the conflict. Does the employer's private property rights supersede the rights of the individual who is in their own vehicle coming to and from work? In fact, in many of the places, they don't have any policy relative to a visitor. A visitor can come in with a shotgun in the back window. That's fine, but an employee can't. So there's conflict there too, and that's that is the purpose of the bill. I hope you'll pass it. I think after looking at it again, it was one of those late draft things. I don't like the provision that says this does not apply to people parking near correctional facilities, because there's people that visit their inmates up in Berlin, and the parking lot's huge, and there is actually no access the prisoners would have towards those vehicles. If those are locked up, they should still be able to defend themselves, especially going up to Berlin and back. You never know when the black bear is going to attack. But that's basically the bill. I think it needs a little work, and I apologize for that, but I hope you will patiently OTP this. Thank you.
Yes, Representative Harper, isn't this in putting our nose into private enterprises' business when they own a piece of land and say that they do not want guns on it? Aren't we making a law that says that they have to do it and they still wouldn't have to?
We're making a law that if you're invited onto their property, you work there or invited onto their property, they can't deny you your right to protect yourself relative to being within your vehicle. Once you get out, it's like when I walk into the building at work, if they find a firearm on me, they will fire me. And I think they're within their purview to do so. But in my vehicle, I believe that property right supersedes their own.
Well, the land that the person is parking on belongs to those people. Mm-hmm. Don't they have that right to say they do not want guns on their property?
They can say that, and if you acknowledge that you have a firearm, and like say a person's private property, not an employer, is that what you're referring to?
Your employer.
Yes.
Says that they do not want guns on their property.
Correct.
Even if it's in your car.
Correct.
Don't they have that right?
No. I don't believe so, or else I probably wouldn't have introduced it.
I think you better do. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Would this allow open display in the vehicle? as an open carry, would that fall to the same?
I don't know that anybody reasonably open has, it's like, can't remember the last time I saw a rifle or a shotgun and a gun rack in a vehicle, primarily because people are afraid that it would be too easily absconded with. So I don't think it necessarily applies. It could, but I still don't see that as a problem, because you're not walking into the building with it, and you likely have it there so that you can go hunting afterwards. So, I mean, that's the most common, would be the most common reason for having a shotgun or rifle in your back window. A handgun wouldn't even likely, you'd have to tape it to the window for somebody to see it. So as long as you got duct tape, I guess you're, you know.
Would you believe that this could also cause discrimination among certain employees within the company?
I think you get discrimination going on now. If you tell somebody that they can't have their guns and they argue with us, well, what if I want to go hunting? They already know. I mean, my employer already knows I have guns, because I have Shotgun News that I read when my machine's running. But I think that discrimination can already exist, and it's really none of their business to look in your vehicle anyway. So they shouldn't be searching your vehicle or looking in it regardless. You might have other things that they would be offended. If you had a Playboy magazine, they might find that offensive. And if they're searching your car or looking in your car to find things to be offended by, I'm sure they would discriminate. People discriminate all the time. But I don't think that's a particular issue that this brings out necessarily.
I'm a little confused in a sense, because if you're going to carry a firearm with you, either for personal protection or to go hunting, you're going to leave it all day long in a parking lot, or all night long, depending on what shift you work. Why would anybody be able to see it? I mean, I would think that the cost of the firearms alone would be enough that you'd want to hide it. So what is the problem we're trying to solve?
The problem you're trying to solve is yes, I think you're right. Most of the time, people would have it in the back seat. Some vehicles don't really lend themselves to necessarily have a place you can hide it, but it might be inside a gun case. But the fact of the matter is, if somebody finds out, right now, because people's personal property rights, as far as within their own vehicle, are not protected, if somebody finds out, it could be used by somebody else to say, hey, he keeps a gun in his car, and you guys got to do something, and next thing you know, the guy's getting fired.
Let's assume, for instance, that you kept a firearm in the back seat of your car or behind the seat of your pickup truck, and it's covered. And one of your fellow employees goes to your boss and says that he's got a gun in his car. They come to you and say, do you have a gun in your car?
You're forcing people to lie.
Well, yeah, but if you're going to save your job.
Well, if this passes, he doesn't have to lie. And also, there's the other thing is, like we all know, most laws or rules like that are typically rules like that are typically followed by most people. So most people who are going to abide by the law and abide by the rules will just be defenseless to and from work. This provides them the avenue to protect themselves without having to lie to their boss. I mean, I lie to my boss all the time about, stuff like, no, I didn't take a 10-minute break. I took I was only out there for 5 minutes, stuff like that. Oh, jeez.